So I don't want the next person to get confused. Oh, does it? Yeah, that's no fun then. I could definitely look into that. I actually had a camera I used to use. Hi, Crowboy. I had a camera I used to use for my dog's camera at my old apartment. And I stuck it to the bottom of my desk. And then I would just turn on the Sable cam whenever something boring was happening on screen. But she doesn't, well, she sleeps in her bed. She sleeps underneath my bed. But at our new apartment, now she has windows to look out of. So I don't blame her. There's a lot more fun to be had looking out windows. Why don't we get started? Hello, 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 and welcome to Bonus Pod. My name is Haley McLean, and this is the companion show to the MinMax show, the new show, although we've been a few months in. Welcome in. This is the show wherein those at the MinMax Council tier member, as you can see on the right of the screen if you're watching visually, can call in and chat with me. And today's the first time since we've started Bonus Pod that it's just me and the community. Isn't that nice? Back to the roots. I mean, I think there was only one time where it was just me and y'all, because usually at least Ben's here too, and it was party chat before. But yeah, today we've got just the community hanging out. Hi, everybody. A lot of fun stuff going on with MinMax this week to schedule it out. I saw on the Patreon poll post for New Show Plus that folks were having a hard time picking between specifically two shows. The one where I'm going to eat hot wings and we'll do like the Hot Ones interview style while trying to also not infringe upon they have a trademark to Hot Ones, the TV show wherein Sean Evans interviews somebody and they eat relatively spicier and spicier wings throughout the entire interview, in case anyone's not familiar. Chat saying, I hope Hot Wings wins. Spiciest interview is up by only 6 votes right now, Crowboy said. That's crazy. And then the other one that people are really leaning towards too is the new Game Query episode. So we did an episode last week, Game Query, which is a now defunct podcast done by myself, Leo, AJ Moser, and Blake Hester. So when we were young, early 20-somethings, we started a podcast after we were interns at Game Informer, which has since been scrubbed from the internet. I think only 2 episodes exist on the internet, readily available. And those are like we do a charity stream every year. So those are, I think it's just our charity stream episodes. Maybe we have our final episode, I think might have been up there. But it was super fun to podcast with those guys. It was funny last week when we were doing that podcast. My brain reverted back to like 23-year-old Haley. Just hearing Blake's voice host a podcast, I was like, oh, I feel like I'm at my old apartment. I'm 23, thinking about going to law school. I'm a little baby. It was really fun. I had a really good time with it. So I'd honestly be happy if either that or the spiciest interview win. All 4 are good choices, but those 2 are blowing away right now. And it's probably going to be between those 2. So any supporter on Patreon can go and vote on those right now. Patreon.com/MinMax. And the other thing that went live today was, I see some people talking about it in chat. Is there going to be another Red Dead Redemption 2 stream happening today? Yeah, Leo and I are going to stream probably just in a couple hours after we record this podcast. And we have been doing, this is going to be week 5. We've really been loving it. Every single Monday night, Leo and I log onto this special Red Dead Redemption 2 online server that we had to go on Discord and like interact with the Discord channel to get permitted to get on. And the whole premise with that is everybody in these channels does roleplay streams, roleplay gameplay. So I talked about roleplay back when Sarah was on, but that was more of a Grand Theft Auto 5 roleplay discussion, and this is it hits different to do it in Red Dead Redemption because it's just you don't have to, but I have a southern accent the whole time. You can't reference anything after, I think it's 1899 is the date in server that it's supposed to be, so I think that's the date that Red Dead Redemption 2 starts. if I'm not mistaken. So like, you know, even last stream, Leo was like mentioning skateboarding, and I Googled it. And I was like, skateboards weren't invented until 1940. You're like, oops. So yeah, you have to like be careful not to mention certain old thing or newer things. And you can't break character as well, or kind of reference that you're in a video game setting. So, I mean, Leo and I are pretty loose with it because it's usually just us two walking around, but we try to be good. You know, you say instead the vernacular that people use in that community is flex your blank muscle. So if I said to Leo, how did you just drink that? You know, I don't know how to drink in this game. He would say flex your eye muscle and then flex your right click on muscle on the drink. So you have to, there's like these unique terms that people use in these communities. And it's been so fun to peel back the onion and like learn more about it. And then our whole plot point is we are traveling thespians going from one side of the map, the farthest west, all the way east to Saint Denis. And we are doing shows as we go in all these towns to save up money for a really pretty wagon I saw that we want to use to travel across to the world in. And we kind of want to have the wagon by the time we get to Saint Denis. So DJ Tommy Pizza said, do you think you'll get to Saint Denis tonight? I think we're really close to buying the wagon. I think we're at $1,600 and it costs $2,000 to buy the wagon. One sheriff lady tips Leo $500 after our show the other day, which is an exorbitant amount of money for that world. That's crazy. So we were hyped for that. But that show was kind of a morale buster because we got hecklers. It was in Valentine and people were being so mean. We did one right before in Strawberry and everyone was so sweet. Like they all sat quietly and listened to our whole show and clapped at the end. And then when we went to Valentine, people were heckling us and yelling, "This sucks," and leaving in the middle of the show. We were like, oh God, We also had people from the audience take part in that show. And our people who took part in the show were very nice and stayed in character and stuff. But people in the audience were animals. They were making us feel afterwards. Leo and I are both like, why am I tired and emotionally drained from that? That was so hard. But that's been so fun. So the first 3 episodes of that are on Leo's channel specifically just because I couldn't record on my side for MinMax for the first 3 episodes. And then episode 4 just went up today. So if you go to Leo's channel, it's just Leo Vader on YouTube, and go to playlists, you can find the first 3 episodes there. And then starting today, from my perspective, is episode 4, where we go to Strawberry and Valentine, do some shows. My horse dies. Lots of other stuff happens. It's very fun to watch from Leo's side too. Like I whenever after we finish streaming, I'll go peek and look at a couple really funny moments I remember from Leo's perspective, because he uses push to talk, so we can talk to chat at the same time. And it's so funny to hear, like, in my perspective, I just heard silence, but Leo's dying on the other end, just muted for me. I believe it's episode 4. Yeah, Hitmonchan. And it's just been so fun. It's been great. Really recommend watching those. It's the most fun I've had in a long time playing a game. It's just like, I was talking to Leo about it too. It's like playing with dolls. I used to play with dolls with my little sister a lot. And we come up with all these stories and backstories, and every character, like there was the bitchy one and the kind one, the one who's a hairdresser or whatever, and we get them to all to fight with each other, and all this drama would happen. It's really reminding me of that. And to take place in the Red Dead world is a bit more smaller scale than Grand Theft Auto 5, so it feels more confined and easier to be part of that world, I find, than I think maybe GTA 5, but I've never tried role-playing in GTA 5. I'd love to try that with Sarah. I bet she'd be really good at it because she's so invested in that world, and watching all those live streamers who do it that are really funny. Is this the new Nancy Drew stream? I actually have been meaning to do a Nancy Drew stream. And my best friend in the world, Michael Reno, he's like my Ronnie and Grant. Does that make sense if I was Ben? I've been friends with him since I've been a preteen, and he loves playing the Nancy Drew games. I was thinking about bringing him on to do them with me too, maybe one of them, because y'all would love him. He's so funny, and he is so much smarter than me, and also so much better at doing the puzzles and stuff. He'd be very fun. Yeah, but we have, besides what's going on with Fashion Police and GTA Online, oh, that's a good idea, Weezer Man. That'd be really fun for Sarah and I to do. Besides what's going on in MinMax this week, there's a few topics that we could chat about today. I kind of checked it out in the MinMax Council Tier Discord channel that, hey, it's just me and y'all today. So what do you want to talk about? A few topics came up. I know the Oscars just happened last night. We could chat about that. Dune 2. Some people were hyped about Dune 2. in that Nintendo Yuzu thing, Neil, I know you pointed out. I was looking into that right before this. I didn't get to read the whole court documents, but that's pretty interesting. We could talk about that. Yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to pop up first. Anyone in the community? Any of those topics or even another topic that you're passionate about? Would love to chat with y'all. Just raise your little hand if you'd like to come up. I could start on it. I personally didn't watch the Oscars, but I went back and watched most of the, like, all the winners, and then I also watched the I'm Just Ken performance, which was weirdly reminded me of the Herald of Darkness performance at the Game Awards, except not as good, which was pretty damning because, you know, that's Hollywood Oscar level production quality. And not that the Game Awards doesn't have great production quality, but I was way more entranced by frickin' Herald of Darkness than I'm Just Ken, but it was also amazing. But I was a little bit sad about how I saw some people in our Discord saying that the Barbie movie got robbed a little bit, and I definitely felt that too. I mean, that was my movie of the year for this past year. And it did win Best Original Song, so it had that going for it. But other than that, it lost to everything, I'm pretty sure. Oppenheimer won Best Picture. Very surprised that Spider-Verse didn't win Best Animated Picture. That was probably the thing I was most surprised about. Not that The Boy and the Heron isn't good, but really, really, really questioning why that didn't win. But other than that, I'm not really much of an Oscar person. It's crazy that I watched more hours of the Game Awards this year than the Oscars. I usually watch the Oscars with my family, but I was just too busy this Sunday. It didn't feel like it. But yeah, it was overall seemed pretty good. Exciting that Emma Stone won for that. Hi, Not Weirder. I'll let you up here.
Hi. I felt bad that no one else was raising their hand, so I'll be the one that steps up first.
Thank you. And I was just rambling about an Oscar show I didn't watch, so appreciate it.
I watched all of it because I'm a weirdo and I enjoy watching all these like big award ceremonies for whatever reason.
What was your feeling on it? Did you feel...
I think like the general consensus, at least among my friends, is that it went like surprisingly well for like an Oscar ceremony.
Yeah.
It was pretty smooth. And I don't know. I didn't really have any hot takes about the awards. I mean, Emma Stone winning Best Actress was a shocker. And if you saw her clip of her winning, she did not seem like she expected it. I think everyone was rooting for Lily Gladstone. I saw Poor Things and I really liked it. I did not see Killers of the Flower Moon yet.
Okay. I've been meaning to see Poor Things. The trailer alone looked fantastic for that movie. I just didn't have time to see it, but yeah,
it's really good. It's really insane, but it's very good.
It looks like a trip.
Oh yeah.
But she won. Did she win for La La Land a few years ago? Wasn't that her?
Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy. Good for her.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you saw the clip of Al Pacino at the very end.
No, what was that?
It was very bizarre. They brought out Al Pacino, and as soon as he came out on stage, my mind just like flashed back to the Game Awards. I think it was 2 years ago when he came out to announce Best Actor for. I think Christopher Judge won that.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know. So Al Pacino came out to announce Best Picture, and it was. I would just suggest looking up the clip. It was a very bizarre way to announce it. He was like, "Okay, I think like this is what I see on the envelope. On the envelope, it says Oppenheimer." He didn't like say Best Picture goes to Oppenheimer. He's like, "I'm reading this off this like envelope, and this is what I see." And everyone was confused. And then he started listing down all the names, and then everyone realized, oh wait, Oppenheimer actually won. He's not just like doing a bit.
Oh my god, weird that he would botch probably the most important award for.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was a botch.
Yeah, and Bruno Trigger in the chat says, and no one got slapped on stage. That was a year ago. I completely forgot about that. The Chris and Will Smith slap from last year.
It felt like a lot longer than a year ago, but
yeah, you think it was like 2-3 years ago? Oh my god.
Yeah.
All the drama that result. That was 2 years ago.
Okay.
All the years blend together now. Oh my god. I can't keep track. And Not Weirder, you were talking to me in the Discord how You're Canadian, yeah?
I am. I'm in Montreal right now,
Oh,
studying for
Montreal.
school, but I'm from Toronto.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
That's fun. And
yeah.
what was your question
My
about relating to that? I was curious about it.
yeah. It was like honestly mostly a rant, and this is something I wanted to bring up a few weeks ago, but like I don't know. As a Canadian, like I was looking through the Game Awards list of like media outlets, and they rank them all, or they like categorize them all by country, and like the U.S. has like dozens of dozens, and then you have Canada, and there's like four outlets, and
Hmm.
obviously there's a lot more like Canadian outlets that exist that are like yeah that are there beyond like those main four that they have, and then also just like the general idea of like as a Canadian, I wish there were more like Canadian specific outlets that like highlight Canadian developers and talk
Hmm.
about like Canadian news and I don't know, especially like with like the mainstream. I know like I was looking at like Toronto Star, like the main Toronto newspaper, and I was like, okay, what games do they cover? And I saw like, oh, they did a Starfield review, and then I looked at the bottom of like the or like right below the image, it said like this article is from AP News, so they don't have their own like games division. They just like
Uh,
yeah source it out to other papers. But I know like CBC has a games reporter who was on like the Giant Bomb Couch last year.
okay.
I thought that was really cool. And then I found this website a few weeks ago called CanadianGameDevs.com. They don't like post articles super frequently,
Hmm.
but they have a podcast, and on the podcast, every time they like bring up a game in the description, they have like where it's from, like what city in Canada
Oh,
it's
I've
from,
been on
which I
this
think is really
podcast
cool.
before, actually.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
funny.
Steven, who runs it, used to live like 2 blocks from me.
Oh my god.
And we've played Overwatch together since then. It was a while ago. It was few months ago. But yeah, they're great. They're kind of what you're asking for, right? But they should get more recognition. It's like they'll hyper focus on Canadian game dev games and even go so far to interview them, that kind of thing. And also, not just the mainline ones, not just the, you know, hit like Balatro, for example, is a Canadian game dev game. They wouldn't just go after the Balatros that are getting like a lot of media attention. They'll be like, oh, this really cool indie dev thing from Mississauga, Ontario, that isn't getting enough attention. This little mobile game, and they'll break that down and talk about it for a lot. So it's honestly where I go to find information about the really small game dev stuff, the Canadian scene. And they're also super sweet people over there doing that kind of stuff. So that's
Yeah,
super
I really
cool.
need to put my money or my whatever the word is, put my something where my mouth is, and just like and start listening because I need to support these smaller ventures, especially like being in Montreal. Like I'm surrounded by like where my school is. Like EA is like a block away, and like
Oh, really?
Co-op who did like Goodbye Volcano High, they're also a block away.
Oh, I
So
love
I'm
that
just like
game. Yeah.
constantly surrounded by all these developers, especially like all my teachers and stuff. And yeah, it's very cool to be in this like environment. But I do wish like it was highlighted just a little bit more. I don't know if you've had that thought as well, being Canadian.
I definitely have thought that as well. It's kind of like Canada is just America light to a lot of the really big media outlets. It's like, oh yeah, well we can just interview them when something really big pops up, but other than that, like those kind of specific game devs don't get focused on as much as they should, or just the fact that they're from Canada themselves doesn't seem to be as much of a topic of discussion as opposed to when they go international outside of the US to talk to other types of game devs, like in Europe or Japan or that kind of thing. There's usually more care to be like, oh, this Swedish dev is doing that. You know what I mean? It's almost just like when it's Canada, it doesn't get referenced because we get lumped up so easily with America. Maybe I don't know what the general thought is
Yeah,
there, but um, and also just the fact that our country's trying really hard to offer a lot of incentives to game developers. I don't know so much about Montreal, but I know where I am physically in Nova Scotia. We have some of the craziest and best digital media tax credits in the world, trying to account for like paying. I think it's up to 40% or something of all labor costs. Um,
yeah. I think I read. Oh, I'm blanking on who wrote this article, but there's an article about like yeah how Montreal is also and Quebec is like a big tax. I don't know if tax haven is the right word, but it's
mhm.
a big province to help like get studios funded and whatnot. I had a professor last semester who was on the Canadian Media Fund for a few years who helped like figure out like which games deserve funding
Yeah.
for Canada's like jury, which is pretty cool. Yeah, and I I don't know where the article went, but I'm like sure I didn't dream it up. There's an article written by like a university student for like their university paper where they got Austin Walker to talk a little bit about like Canadian media, and I think he said that like the audience is also just not there, which I
Mm,
guess makes sense. We're like a third of the size
yeah.
of the states, and again like the rest of the world, but I don't know. Yeah,
We just have so much empty space.
I know.
Just
Yeah.
trees where people would be if we were America. Kind of
Yep.
energy. Hi Toro, how are you? Sorry. To not say hi to you sooner than that.
Oh, no, don't apologize. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Okay. Put up my hand because I was like, man, can we just make Bonus Pod the Canadian game discussion for a second?
We need Kath in here too. Then it'll just be Canadians
Yeah,
everywhere.
but I actually think I have something relevant to add because I'm wrapping up my master's right now, and I had to do a ton of research and just write this big paper about philanthropic funding for the arts in Canada,
Oh, very cool.
and I was doing a lot of comparisons to film because I think film in 1995 the CRA added film as like an accepted art form for charitable purposes.
Mm-hmm.
But Canada's had the National Film Board since 1939, like literally a government agency that's been funding film production and like Blackfish and Inside Job. There's like these investigative documentaries that have now been like by Hot Docs and stuff like that. So there's like all these industry associations that are charities that can give out money to directors and whatnot for film. And I was making the argument that video games should be considered artworks so that they can sort of start to receive charitable funding from industry associations. Because I feel like a lot of indie development studios would benefit from that. And I wanted to ask, I thought this was relevant. I wanted to ask you guys, and Haley, especially since you work with a lot of different game developers, like, what do you think about like, imagine if they could get like cultural arts funding, but they had to make games that were sort of for the public benefit in some way. It was it had to do with something about promoting Canadian culture or like some cultural discussion, big heavy topics kind of thing. Like, do you
Mm-hmm.
think they would ever go in for that?
That's a really interesting question, and I think there's certain facets that could be used really well. Like I'm thinking of like indigenous game developers. It'd be really cool for them to be able to get such good funding and focus in on that kind of cultural aspect. Like I guess I'm curious to what counts as cultural for them. I know when we do foreign investment filings, and they actually recently changed the laws for this. So just for context, whenever a foreign party is establishing a new company in Canada or is purchasing like all the shares and assets of a company in Canada, like is purchasing the company essentially, they have to file what's called like a foreign investment thing with the ICA, our tax our governing tax act, and they have to say like, okay, yeah, here's my disclaimer, blah blah blah, here's where I'm from, and they keep all that stuff on file. And there's one section of that filing where you check a box, and then you have to do this whole additionary secondary step, where is your company going to be dealing with Canadian cultural works? And they limit that though to be like film, video, audio, and similar works. So we actually had to do a lot of digging and be like, does video games count? Do you all think video games count for this? Because they want to essentially do what you're talking about and ensure that like Canadian companies that are making Canadian focused cultural works either have Canadians working on those things or are doing the things properly to ensure that that cultural aspect of Canadian content is still being maintained, I guess is the logic behind it. And it was only recently that they released this long post saying, okay, yeah, games count towards this now. So moving forward under the ICA Act, if I say was opening a Canadian company with a foreign investor, whether they're located in Hong Kong, let's say, for example, and they have no Canadian game devs on the board or anything like that, even though that's permitted, they might still have to go through a bunch of extra hoops if they're making games specifically now, because those are considered cultural works under Canadian law. And I'm just interested, I'd still be interested to know, even from your perspective, Toro, I always am wondering, just because you're making something that's digital media or engaging or has audio-visual components, what then leverages into being culturally specific for Canada, if you know what I mean?
Well, I was looking at from the philanthropic side, it's about public benefit. And
Hmm.
so it's really broad, like there's this huge list of sort of things that can be considered public benefit. But and the cultural piece of it, I think they there's like some case law on what's considered to be sort of cultural works, but there's not like it hasn't been legislated. So it's just sort of like a matter of interpretation on a case by case basis. But
Hmm.
if you can prove that, you're dealing with you're providing like some sort of like contribution to like public discussion about issues that are relevant for Canadians, then
Hmm.
you can consider it sort of like a cultural artwork. But that's a lot that looks a lot different for film than I think it does for games.
For
But I've
sure,
always
yeah.
been wondering, like, if a game developer was free from the constraints of like we have to make this mass market appeal, our publisher is telling us not to do
Yeah.
XYZ because it's not going to be that popular, and they went after something like some big weighty topic that is going to kind of be heavy and probably make the game have a very narrow audience, but they can do that with public funding, like what would they be more open to that because that's actually what interests them?
That's very cool. And I think that I am very much for that. It's just nice to see funding from anywhere that isn't purely like commercial only public appeal kind of thing. I'm kind of for that no matter where that funds are coming from. If it gives the developers some wiggle room to not be as constrained with timelines and meeting criteria and all that kind of stuff, because it's such a huge part of the publishing agreement side is usually the obligations of the developers to meet all these milestones for X amount of money and all this stuff. But if they were getting external funding from the government or other those kind of philanthropic sources, that takes so much of a burden off. And like you're saying, they can work on passion projects that are more focused on Canadian culture and Canadian issues. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I'm very selfishly just trying to argue for a niche for me to like have a career where I take my career and then apply it to my favorite thing, which is video games. Like I'm so jealous of you for having been able to pull that off.
I mean, it's a big enough market that I really feel like games is such an expansive type of media that most industries can get applied to it just because it combines so many things together, right? It's not just, you always say copyright of a game, and like, yeah, you can copyright a game, but also it's a assimilation of all these different things. The voice actors work, if there's motion capture in it, their work, the video, the animation, the audio, the music, the source code, the engine you're actually making the game on, if that has any unique properties to it. It's just crazy how many things get amalgamated into this one thing that then you sell. And I'm kind of only on the sell side, but it'd be interesting to be like, yeah, like what you're saying, someone who works in the government maybe, but focuses on game developer tax credits to ensure that they are able to, or not so much the government, but like you're saying, like those kind of nonprofit agencies to aid.
Well, like it's weird that the National Film Board exists, right? And has existed for almost 100 years now.
Yeah.
Like, movies start technology makes movies possible like and within 30 years the government is producing its own movies. The National Film Board has won 14 Academy Awards since then,
Mm.
producing all these animated shorts and whatnot. But there's just absolutely no equivalent, even though video games have been around for, I don't know, like 40 years or what now?
Hmm. Isn't it crazy that they've only been around for 40 years? That's nuts when you think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's very cool.
Anyway,
And you're writing that paper now? It's almost done? Or where are you
oh,
at?
it's already done.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
already done. Congrats.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm one assignment away from finishing my master's.
Oh,
Hey, congrats.
that's super
Thank
exciting.
you.
Congratulations.
Not weird. I feel like I just like came in and started rambling.
I had
was very
no.
curious to hear your perspective
My
on
brain
this.
just like broke. I have no idea what to say. No, but it was a very interesting conversation. I mean, I'm an undergrad student, so my perspective's a little bit more like, I don't know, less like fleshed out. So it's interesting to hear like your perspective on as a master student. Definitely good stuff to think about. Because again, like in my program, it's not a lot, but we have like a lot of video game development opportunities since I'm in like a computer arts program. And again, I have like a lot of teachers who know a bit about like video game funding. So it's definitely something I could bring up to them and again, we have our own like games research division, which I think is funded in part by
cool.
the government. I assume it has to be. So yeah, I'm very curious about what their perspective is, and maybe I'll ask them. Who knows?
That's very cool. Are you leaning more towards the like game development side of your career, maybe later on once you're done your
That's
undergrad?
the struggle. Is yeah. As soon as I like got into this program and like accepted, I promised myself never go into video games because the industry is so like volatile. But like the
Yeah.
more I take these game courses, the more interesting it seems.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure yet. We'll see.
I would say I saw a lot of people commenting, especially whenever it comes up on the MinMax main podcast. It's like when we talk about layoffs and stuff like that. It's so frustrating. I remember even the episode I was on recently, we were talking about that, and the comments were all, I was going to be a game developer, but after hearing all these layouts, I don't want to do that anymore. I would say that most of the clients, not most, but a decent chunk, like 40 or 50% of the people that come to me these days are people that have been laid off from a bigger studio and now just want their own little vertical slice of pie, and they can just make the game they want to make in their free time while doing other things. So maybe, they still have those software skills that could work for a SaaS company or something like that, just because the game dev side is so volatile and you're always getting laid off. Up something more solid and predictable, and they don't have to worry about food and stuff. And then, Leafeon, you want to talk as well. And then, you know, having that company on the side burner and working on their passion project whenever they want to and being their own boss and stuff like that. I'm seeing much more of that, leaving the game industry but still making games, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
what's tough about that though is you do gain such invaluable skills working at those bigger studios. Like someone who works for 10 years at EA is going to have an easier time making their own side project. In the same way, someone who works at a law firm for 10 years is going to be have an easier time going solo than someone right out of law school. It's like you kind of see how the sausage is made, so to speak, and you learn so much working with other people straight on. I think what might get lost if I think about it that way with my new strategy of just do it in your free time. And it's too bad because from what I've heard from game developers is working in person with people together in non-crunch like formats, like where people are not getting abused while they work, is where they tend to learn the most, which is would get lost in that kind of sense. But I really hope whenever we talk about layoffs, because it's so frequent, that it doesn't deter people from completely giving up on being someone who makes games, not necessarily employee number 225,301 of Microsoft. You know what I mean?
Yeah, someone who's like a good case study of like I know kind of funny every time they bring up layoffs, they're like, oh, what about the students who are like studying video games in college and whatnot? It's like that's kind of me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the passion is still in the room, but there is like that slight like fear that's like constant about like who knows if what I'm doing is like going to lead to a stable job. But
Mm-hmm.
again, people are still like when it comes to like school, you're like worrying about like a school project is a lot less than like worrying about like am I going to be laid off. So I think when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to like projects and whatnot, students are still super excited about like making their own games. But again, there's that slight industry concern. But you know what? That's something to worry about in the future. Right now, I think people are just having fun.
That's
Yeah,
great.
and that was me, who was the student that went to school for game development and then got so disillusioned and uh, frightened and scared off of the games industry that I didn't go into the games industry.
That is
Mm-hmm.
super fair. I'm just yeah, I'm like
Yeah.
ignoring that intentionally, just putting it on the back of my head.
No, yeah, so that's what I came on to say is that I did go to school for game development, but I
Cool.
went in for a computer science degree with a concentration in game development and programming because I knew that like game industry was already kind of volatile, so I was just like it's good to have a general programming degree so I can get a job that's not just for game development.
Mm-hmm.
That's like my biggest advice I would give to anybody who's like thinking about going into the industry on the tech side is that don't go for a game development major, go for a computer science major or something along those lines so that you have the opportunity to not work in the games industry.
That is
But
why I'm trying to minor in computer science. Hopefully next year or the year after. Yeah, just to have that like extra opportunity.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, after we had a couple games projects and for my junior and senior year, and I got so burnt out working on like a 20-person team
Mm-hmm.
for 6 months, and that having that as my senior project, where it was like putting so much pressure on it, like this will literally make or break my life right here. At least it felt like it. It was so excruciating, and it burnt me out. And by the end of college, I was like, I need a break from this. I can't keep doing this. So I ended up not going into the industry. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then waited a couple years to try to make a game again independently with a couple of friends.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID happened, so then we were all remote, and it was just like the vibe wasn't there of making games. It's a lot harder to converse with people and talk to people making games remotely. Like it's so different.
Do you think post-COVID that might be something you approach again, even if it's not the same project, it's something new?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was still in the same area as those friends, I still talk to them all the time. You know, they're my
Yeah.
close friends, but I'm in a different state now. So we're now always remote anyway. Um, and it's yeah, I would love to try to make a game again. Every time I watch stuff on game development, and you know, like I'm a backer for the Mina the Hollower Kickstarter.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and we get the private developer streams, and I love watching those. And
Oh,
then it
cool.
like kind of feels that fire again. It's just like, oh yeah, I want to like say something in the chat or whatever, and like give like pointers or whatever for something that they're having trouble with, and it like makes me want to like make games again. But like, and then I think about the industry, and I'm just like, no, I can't do that. And it's literally every day, you know, that there's layoffs and stuff, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah, it is frustrating because you'd be a perfect person to chuck in there, and it's sad that you get dissuade even before you're able to start. I really don't know if the industry is gonna. It's like a pendulum, and it's gonna sway forward into some non-horrible situation. But I really think until game devs can unionize properly and have those protections be forcibly entrenched, that it just feels like it's a circle, and it's gonna keep happening over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting at the Oscars last night, kind of full circle. I forget who it was. I think it was the Zone of Interest uh people who won when they got on stage.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong on that, but they said um with all these $200 million movies like Dune, sorry, with all these $200 million movies, like there's so many more movies that you could do because I think it was Dune had a relatively low budget of 20 million, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, you can make 20 $10 million movies instead of one $200 million movies. And that kind of thought echoed throughout my entire social media today. Was,
Mm-hmm.
like make 200 million $1 movies, like those kind of jokes and stuff. But like
Yeah.
the budget scaling for the film industry is also, getting so enormous, and it's a huge problem that's also in the games industry now. Just figuring out how big to scale the product. Like you can't we're getting to the point where it's, extreme diminishing returns where how big your project is.
And what's
Um
frustrating is those
yeah.
projects are good. They end up being very good and critically well received, right? It's just a matter of on. Oh, I think it's back on.
Yep.
Sorry, everybody. I don't know what that was about. I didn't have Chrome open or nothing, which is usually the culprit of everything going down. This is all to say my parts for my new PC are coming in. And hopefully I can build that soon. Yeah, it just tells me on my end, stream has disconnected, attempting to reconnect a minute ago. Who knows? Sorry, everybody. I started recording locally just in case we missed any of that, but yeah, isn't that funny that as we're talking about how Canadians need better stuff, my internet goes out? That's very apropos. Sorry, what was your thought there, Leafeon, that you were expounding upon before I disappeared?
Um
200 $2,100,000 movies. Like,
oh right, yeah.
yeah.
So, the scope of movies and games have gotten so big that it's, extreme diminishing returns.
Yeah.
Where, we have a lot of the movies that came out this past year in 2023, like almost every Marvel movie except for Guardians of the Galaxy was like, critically panned and just kind of bombed. Like
Yeah.
Aquaman 2 came out in December, and I don't know anybody who's seen it except for a couple of people in the Discord who have mentioned it in the entertainment channel. It's like that the first Aquaman made $1 billion. The first Captain Marvel made $1 billion, but yet both of their sequels this year were like, even bigger budgets than the first one and
Yeah.
bombed uh, because their budgets were so big.
Yeah, and it's a lot of people thinking just because you have the IP there means that you'll get dividends. I think we need more than that. I think we've reached the point, is particularly if we think about Marvel. I mean, I remember a time when I was in high school where if it was a Marvel movie, it made bank. And I don't know, maybe we've just progressed to a certain level where it's like, okay, and what? Like, especially with that kind of genre movie, and we're moving on to something else. I don't know necessarily what it is, but I used to want to see every single Marvel movie, and like you said, I didn't even know that came out. And it's just, I don't know what switched in my brain, but I think you're right. It's just too much in one, oversaturation of the same market. Just because they think because they have that particularly valuable in the past IP, suddenly it means money, guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking in the Jacob Geller Discord last night with the Oscars and everything. We're all talking about, so what's coming out this year, and we couldn't think of anything original that we were excited for. Like, there's no big Oscar kind of, like Scorsese movie coming out this year that we couldn't think of. And then we looked at the list, and it's just like a ridiculous list of IP sequels again.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, Saw 11, and then it's just like, I feel like Terrifier 3. Like, that's Halloween next year.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Even like the Robert Eggers movies, Nosferatu, which is Dracula. I mean, it's Nosferatu, which is still probably going to be a great movie, but it's not an original quote unquote IP.
Yeah.
It feels like the funding model just sort of doesn't encourage risk taking, right? Which is why you're seeing, so especially with the budgets getting so large, you become like, shareholders become even more risk averse, right? And they want something that's going to be more guaranteed. Does anybody, what was the name of that crowdfunding platform that let you like invest in the development studio and maybe see returns if the game was successful?
Indiegogo?
Fig?
I think it was
Fig, says Kyle as well. Yeah, I think not. We're just right.
Oh, Fig. Yeah.
Yeah, like why'd that fold? Does anybody know?
I never even heard of that. That is such an interesting concept.
The only project I can think of that was on Fig was it Psychonauts 2?
Yeah.
Oh.
Psychonauts did, I think, just a Kickstarter. Did they do Fig for the second one?
I'm looking at a PC Gamer article. Yeah, Fig did Psychonauts 2 and Homeworld 3.
Homeworld 3 was through Fig too?
Wow.
Apparently.
But I thought they, like, the firm that bought them folded. It was some, like, venture capital firm that had no idea what video games were.
Oh, no. Interesting.
Yeah, it seems like it was some, like, weird huge firm.
But it just seemed like such a cool idea of just like, okay, let's get a funding model in place where the people who know the risks involved in making this like something original and interesting are willing to fund it, right? And kind of give the developers a bit more leeway.
I wonder, that's really interesting. I didn't even know that existed. And wow, I wonder how that would affect going out and trying to find a publisher. I wonder if so many publishers saw that and was like, if you're doing Fig, don't even talk to us, because they already are promising so much of the rev share to individuals. If you know what I mean? I'd be curious to how those big publishing houses would perceive a website like that. And if that maybe is part of why it ultimately disappeared, not just the mismanagement, it sounds like it maybe had as well.
Yeah, Indiegogo was another one of those websites, because I remember the AVGN movie was funded through Indiegogo. As Disaster says, that movie did end up being. But yeah, that was another website where I remember I kept seeing film crowdfunding campaigns on there and then just like disappeared eventually.
Yeah, there's a lot of big games that came out of that. Outer Wilds, Psychonauts 2,
wow,
Wasteland 3, Pillars of Eternity 2, Homeworld 3. Like, it looked like they had a pretty good track record.
That's actually a very good list of games. Yeah, I'm surprised. I thought it would be a bunch I've never heard of. So would y'all probably don't know this off the top of your head, but there must be a cap on how many people are allowed to take part, right? Because they could only promise so many percentages of, like, do they say you get 0.05% of revenue? Like, how would they promise that? I'm so curious now. I want to go back and figure that out.
It must be that they can buy like up to a share without getting like majority holding, like you would do with shareholders or something.
Yeah, it would just have to be, yeah. And then only X amount of people can join in it, because then you're out of percentage. You can only split up the pie so much, right? Or maybe they had it so it's a variable. So upon X people joining, you dilute down to this, but that means we'll have more money in total, so you'll get a better return. Oh my God, what would the terms? I see, my brain immediately goes to the terms and conditions of that website.
I just looked up and I found this huge like SEC file all about Fig, and it's like, let's. So I'll send it to you.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
thank
it looks
you.
like
That's so
they got
interesting.
they got bought by Republic, and then Republic said they always intended to close Fig after they acquired it. So it looks like it just got chopped up and sold off for venture capital.
You would definitely have to have crazy accounting backing to manage a company like that, where you have each project then would have potentially thousands of supporters that each have to get their own rev share percentage, probably some kind of revenue report to prove that, you know, they're not just making up a figure. Like, here's our gross revenue, here's net, here's what was deducted. Like, that would be so much accounting work too. Wow. I can't believe I've never heard of that. That's so interesting. I'm definitely going to look more into that. Very cool.
Something else that I was thinking about was like this Kickstarter game I was looking into called Unbeatable. I remember they mentioned that like, despite the money they're raising, that's just enough for them to like get started. And even though they've raised like, how much have they raised? Like $250,000, they still need to go to like pitch to a publisher and whatnot. So like these crowdfundings don't like fulfill all the way. You still need like reliance on like a bigger helping hand. I don't know. It's just interesting to think about.
Yeah, because publishers not only provide monetary support, like an advance or something. We'll give you $100,000 to finish the game, and that's what you pay the people working on the game or what have you. They also do like all the marketing sometimes. They'll do translations sometimes, porting. They'll take on those additional responsibilities. But to get a company that's good at those things, they might not necessarily they might not be giving you advances, so it might not even be that you need money. They might just say no to you because they don't want to do all that good work for you because you already gave so much rev share away. / they would say, okay, well, all that rev share has to come from your side of the bucket, not ours, and then the developer seeing a way poor return. You know, yeah, I can't. It would really depend on if that website became mainstream and publishers weren't as like, ugh, like, I don't know if I want to have, you know, already going into this before we even finish the game, 30% is going to your backers, right? Like, they might say, nah, not worth the return for us, and walk away from the party. And even though they're not willing to give them advance or whatever, they just are good at marketing, they might say no. It'd be interesting to think of how many doors
I was
gonna
say
shut.
like, you could just invert the model and it's like, okay, we're just going to subcontract a publisher. We already have the seed capital and we're just going to use them for marketing and localization and whatnot, you know, but we don't need an advance from them.
A lot of publishers might not even subcontract though, if that much rev share is already accounted for, is what I'm thinking. Like, they might go, don't like it. Because then, you know, like, publishers also don't, even if they shift all the risk onto the developer and they say, okay, you already have 30% revenue going towards your X backers. Cool. We want 50%. And then, you'll know, they'll say, okay, well, that means the 30% we want to shift onto you, put all the responsibility on them for paying those 30. The developer only gets 20. They don't necessarily want the developer to not make money either, because they want them to have enough money to make the DLC, to make a sequel, prequel, if this thing does take off, and they need those funds in order to do that. And the rev share system, giving it to backers, really only helps them make the product not have a long lifespan of support for it, if that makes sense. Like, they get a lot of risk reward up front, and then the developer kind of loses out on the reward long term because they have all these people to account for.
Yeah, that reminds me of like what Tim Schafer. I just watched Double Fine Psychodyssey like a couple months ago, and he was talking about the limitations of the Kickstarter approach, being that it was, you got all your money up front, and then you were kind of constrained by audience expectations after that. And you know, usually the money up front isn't enough to see the whole project through anyway. You
know what sucks is I've even seen publishing agreements where they didn't draft it properly, so upfront costs or upfront amounts that came from crowdfunding, the publisher didn't count those towards recoupable amounts, to like pay back the publisher for all the advances and stuff. So it tripled the length that it took to pay back the publisher and finally get net revenue, because all those amounts that they wanted to be deducted from gross to arrive at net via crowdfunding didn't count. And they essentially were just like, oh, no, we don't count that as recoupable costs, so doesn't matter. And they just had to wait extra long. That's kind of a very complicated, weird situation that I don't think happens very much, but that's another way crowdfunding can almost shoot the dev in the foot if the contract then following up doesn't account for it. Like, oh, yeah, we already have, $100,000 in the bank from crowdfunding. We want to use that to pay back the advance. The publisher might say no because they want to prolong the rev share stuff and make sure that they only get the rev share until all their costs are paid back. It's weird, but maybe I'm explaining that weird, but it was a very complicated and kind of a bummer situation, because ultimately we had to be like, it wasn't listed here, it doesn't count as a recoupable cost, and they just had to be like, oh damn, and wait an extra 2 years before they got any net revenue receipts.
Yeah, and that brings me back to, if philanthropic funding, and a lot of the literature talks about, it's a lot more risk tolerant, like, because a lot of philanthropic funding is for things that you're not sure what the outcome's going to be. You're putting together like a theater performance or like a public display of artworks or something like an exhibition, and it's inherently about, we think this is worth it for like society for this thing to be created, rather than we expect these outcomes to come out of it, and if they don't happen, we're going to punish you.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is, like, I don't know many game developers, but I can't imagine many of them would consider themselves to be artists, right? And that's kind of the flip side of that, is you need to sort of have this collective community of creators that consider themselves to be artists.
Yeah. It's very true. Hi, Steve Evolution, by the way. Hi, welcome up.
I'm going to hop off, make space for other people. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for coming up.
If anyone is listening this far in, you're a real one for listening to us yap about like very nerdy like legal topics. So shout out to anyone listening to this podcast. Okay.
No, this has been great. Bye, Not Weirder.
Yeah, this has been a super listen. I think that's why I sat back for so long, because it was so interesting to listen to.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. I also love your profile picture, by the way. It's making me feel sleepy. What do you feel like chatting about, Steve Evolution?
Just to kind of piggyback on some of the stuff you guys were talking about in regards to film. I think, like, I would agree. I was kind of looking at 2024, and as far as interesting kind of films or stories, it feels like such a kind of barren slate of stuff. I know you guys were talking about kind of what things that you could do to encourage kind of better stories and stuff. And I said it in the chat, but like supporting independent cinemas, I think, is a big thing. I think I saw like a real taste of that when, I don't know what it was like in North America, but when Parasite came out over here, it was only really in independent like art house cinemas, and those things got booked out for like 2 months, and then all of a sudden, all of the major chains started showing it kind of on the back of it. And yeah, I think like it's a great way to encourage kind of, those types of stories to get made and shown kind of more readily. I think it was one of the really nice things about the Oscars last night was so many different kind of stories that were worthwhile got celebrated, from Oppenheimer, Boy and the Heron. It was really, really nice at a time when half the films coming out feel like, and I'm so not trying to yuck yums here, but superhero films, it's just relentless all of the time.
Yeah. It's the same sort of story, different font, is what you feel?
Yeah, it just feels kind of saturated with the same stuff. And it's kind of, it's very weird. Like, whenever COVID kind of took off and lockdown started, the cinema was probably the place that I missed the most. And it feels like, since they kind of opened up again, the variety of stories that you get to go and see has kind of shrunk, more and more and more. I think I posted before when you were asking about stuff to talk about, if anybody had seen Dune 2, because that's the first film in months I can remember going to see and thinking like, wow, and it was such an event, and it was that kind of like massive cinema experience that I grew up with.
What were you gonna say, Lupian?
Have you seen it yet yourself?
No, I haven't seen it. You have?
Oh, yeah. I do agree with you that Dune 2 is, one of the first movies in months I've seen where just a cinematic experience. But I feel like Dune 2 is also a very big outlier because it's personally probably one of my favorite movies I've ever seen in the theater.
Oh, exciting.
It's like, it's a very one of those outliers. But I was gonna say that I kind of disagree because there have been a lot of movies in the last year specifically that were not very samey. I mean, Poor Things, Bo Was Afraid, Saltburn, like huge movies that came out within the last year, um, were pretty different for the most part, and panned in some parts of it because they were so different and weird. Um, I mean, Poor Things got a lot of the recognition because it was a really well-made movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Godzilla minus one too. That I saw like 3 times because that was also a fantastic,
And that won an award,
cinema
right?
experience. Best visual effects, yeah.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, that was such a yeah, that felt massive. Yeah, I should probably say, like, I should qualify what I said earlier. I guess I'm talking about the kind of the films that you would see at least over here. Again, I don't know if it's kind of different over there, but the big chains, the likes of Saltburn and stuff, aren't really getting shown. It's more those wee independent kind of art house cinemas that were showing those films. And I guess the thing that kind of bums me out about that is that, while I love going to those places, I know there are so many people that don't. And there are so many people that might not get to see these kinds of films, kind of as a result.
Yeah, it's so tragic. COVID really like wiped out so many independent theaters, especially back home on Long Island in New York. There was like 3 or 4 theaters I know that closed. And now that I'm in Philly, like there were also a few others that closed. There's only like 2 independent theaters here in Philly, and they're both like a half hour from me and very small. They only have like 3 or 4 screens, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, but Regal does get a lot of the smaller movies like Saltburn or even, the one-time releases like Pinocchio a couple of years ago. Um and sometimes they'll just be for one weekend or one night, which is frustrating. But the bigger theaters do have them. But yeah, I mean, I get that's also here in Philadelphia in a major American city. I'm not really sure how it's like over there with the bigger theaters. You guys do have Regal, right?
I'm not sure if it's under a different name. Our big chains would be Odeon and Cineworld.
Oh, okay.
Would probably be the massive ones.
Yeah, we had one independent film place in my city, and it closed over COVID and became a rock climbing place. Because the ceilings were tall, I guess, was the logic there, which kind of makes sense.
You ever want to just like go up to the movie screen and climb up it,
Low key, kind of like what would be a good movie?
Right?
27 Days Later, it could be an immersive experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was
I
a bummer
can't
because
imagine doing rock climbing. I have all of the grace of a drunk toddler. I just think it would be a disaster.
Oh, I'm not a rock climber myself. I have another place that's part bar cafe, part rock climbing, and I'm like, how have you not been sued yet? Maybe they don't let you rock climb if you've had even a drink. 127 hours. Thank you, Fred. What did I say? 27 hours? That's not even that long. He would have been okay. Yeah, but that was a bummer because I used to I remember going to that as a kid because my dad is a film buff too. Like he likes, Fred, you're totally right. I combined 27 Days Later and 127 hours. That's totally what my brain did. He used to take me there, and I have fond memories of not really understanding what the heck was going on screen, but being like, this is a fun place to be and just enjoying it. And admittedly, I didn't go enough as I got older, and I'm probably at fault for not going enough to support them and stuff like that. And I wish I had now. It's always, once it's gone, right? Now all I have is a massive Scotiabank theater, which is what we call them in Canada. And I have to drive like 45 minutes to go to it, and it's fine, I guess. I don't know. It's just, there is one downtown, but it sucks. It's in the basement of a mall, and it's kind of creepy to go there. And that's the only options now is the mainline movie theaters for me.
Yeah, that sucks.
And what they show.
I think it's it's nice whenever you get something like the whole like Barbie Oppenheimer thing. When something like that pops, you get reminded of why the cinema is such a cool place to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was such a great
Yeah.
couple of weeks. We went to go see each of those films a few times, and like you had people dressed up for Barbie and stuff, and then going into the next film straight afterwards.
Yeah.
This is kind of surreal after a few years without that.
You can't replicate those feelings. That's such an in-person human experience, and when you have everything trying to market towards streaming services right away, it completely robs it of that cool human element to going to a film. Like, not for spoilers, but at the end of the latest Spider-Verse movie, there's a big dramatic thing that happens, and I was so happy I was in a theater for that on the day it came out, because the audience reaction was so fun. I'll remember that more than probably the plot of the movie, because everyone in the theater, when the movie was done, we all went, "What?" and we all just freaked out, and it was such an electric feeling in the air that I don't think you can replicate in any other way of watching film, even if you're in the room with a bunch of your friends. To be with a bunch of strangers and all just feel excited about the same thing at the same time.
Yeah,
so fun.
There's a lot of Marvel movies too, at least like I think of Endgame and Infinity War and Spider-Man No Way Home, which was also, another post-COVID movie, but yeah, seeing those movies in theaters and having those big moments. I think also those movies, because, they get the big audiences. So you get those better audience reactions, I guess. The people who are passionate are gonna go those midnight releases. But yeah, like a lot of other movies that I feel like should, could, or would have those reactions, like even Godzilla -1. I saw that with a group of people that was kind of weird and like pretty eclectic. Not personal group, but like the other people in the audience. It was a somewhat packed theater, and it's like people of all ages and like all these different people, and there was just like almost no reactions to anything happening in the movie. It was kind of weird, but I feel like there's some parts in that movie where, like, if it was a Marvel crowd, maybe would have had like that bigger reaction or something. And those are always so much fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's such a shame. We got to see Godzilla -1. I think it was a couple of weeks late when it hit the screens here. And by that time, you had like a group of people who were just so desperate to see it. So when we went, I think it was like mostly enthusiastic people. And yeah, there were some great reactions during that film. It was such a good film.
When I did get to see it in black and white, though, that was a great crowd.
Oh God, I'm so jealous.
Yeah, that was so much fun. Love that movie. When it comes to streaming on something, I don't know what it's on, but I highly recommend that. It's one of the best movies from last year. I think it was my number 2 or 3 or something like that. But,
maybe to wrap up this combo, though, what the thought that the theater moment I'm thinking of that comes to my head, which is the weirdest and funniest one. Remember when Pikachu talked in one of the Pokemon movies, and there was that someone captured video footage of inside a theater during that, and the crowd was just like, "What the hell?" It's like my favorite movie theater moment I ever saw online, because that also kind of low-key made me want to immediately go watch that Pokemon movie because of that audience reaction too.
Yeah, the Ryan Reynolds Detective Pikachu movie.
No, it was. It's like it was one of the animated movies, and Pikachu's like laying on the dirty gravel ground. Oh my God, not Weirder found it. That's it. Yes, and I think Ash just got his head hit by a rock. Pikachu's not actually talking, but Pikachu has the cringiest voice, and it's like, "You're my friend. I'll help you," or like something, and everyone in the crowd just goes,
"Oh no,
what the hell?" Like, it's just so out of pocket and weird, and why did they do that? And then they come to, and he starts saying Pikachu again, like normal. It's not like he talks after that like Meowth or something, but the audience reaction is so funny. Thank you, Not Weirder, for putting it in the Discord chat there. It is great. I recommend watching it, because and again, that can really only happen when you're in a room with all other people who happen to like Pokemon. It's such a fun way to scoop up everyone in your city who likes the same stuff, especially the launch day of something. Oh, it's just, I don't know why that came to my mind. It was so funny.
I think there's a lot to be said about like any social situation where you're allowed to be goofy and enthusiastic and just like something shamelessly. Like those are hard to beat.
Like a Rocky
I think
Horror
that's why
Picture Show showing and stuff.
I love Rocky Horror Midnight Show. Those are so much fun. Yeah,
they're so fun.
Yeah, but I think that's also why Barbenheimer also like socially worked so well because
Yeah.
it's inherently goofy that you have, the two extremes of Pink and fun and then Oppenheimer, and going to the theater and seeing huge groups of middle school girls with their moms all dressed in pink, and then also having all the groups that want to see Oppenheimer, and they're both in the same showings. That was such a such an experience that
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Can't replicate that. And they could never have predicted that. It's not like Hollywood is like, let's release Oppenheimer and Barbie at the same point. They'll love this. It's us weirdos who go to things that attach all these memey traditions to them, and that makes it so much more fun.
Yeah.
And you can be sure that like there's an army of marketing executives chained to a desk somewhere trying to figure out how to make that happen again.
How to crack
Oh,
TikTok
absolutely.
to do that again or something. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
we're gonna see a lot of kids movies coming out in October this year. I can feel it.
Playmobil the movie part 2.
Yeah.
Ugh.
The Mario movie coming out the same day as Saw 13.
Is it really?
No, Saw 13 I don't think is confirmed yet. Saw
Okay.
11 is this year, but yeah.
Oh my god, I
But-
went to see the Mario movie, the first one, so drunk with my partner, and it made it so much more fun. It was hilarious.
Oh yeah, I'm
we
sure.
make a tradition. We like to, except you know what's the worst one is we did that before the Pinocchio Guillermo del Toro movie. And we were like, Pinocchio, this will be fun. And I don't know why I just didn't look into what the movie was about. I was like, oh no, this is a lot of fascism. I'm a bit too drunk for how much sad, like, World War stuff is happening. I thought it was going to be like, I know the main Pinocchio Disney movie isn't that happy either. The donkey scene still traumatizes me. But I was like, I shouldn't be like 6 beers deep for this. This is a mistake.
That was another really weird theater experience I had because I had a 5-year-old kid sitting behind me with his parents.
Yeah.
And I was like, thinking throughout the whole movie, I was like, how is this kid processing this movie at all?
I
Like,
know.
straight up Mussolini jokes, and like, he has no idea what World War II is.
He's probably just like a puppet. Yippee.
Yeah.
I don't think he should have been there. Isn't that movie rated
It was
R?
PG?
It was a PG?
No, it was PG.
Oh
Mhm.
my god.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have been fine.
It's
I
weird
think
because
one of my favorite movie memories was being in the audience for Bad Santa, and like some mother
my
and her
God.
2 young kids were in like a couple of rows in front,
Yeah.
and you just know that she had been looking at posters and saw Santa Claus and thought, this'll do. And 10 minutes in, she ripped them out of that place so quick.
Oh god, I can imagine.
Oh, I have a great one where my friends and I went to see Click. Remember the Adam Sandler movie Click that weirdly has a super sad scene? But the whole movie, this woman in the front row had the loudest laugh ever. It killed us. So like, he'd press slow-mo on the hot neighbor's boobs or something, and they would and she would just be like like absolutely dying, screaming, laughing to the point that everyone in our row was trying not to laugh at her. And then the scene at the end comes where he's like dying or something, spoilers for Click, and she was bawling her eyes out so loud and going no throughout the entire scene. And that's one of my fondest memories of my friend group, is going to see that movie and just listening to her more than listening. Like, the movie's pretty mid, but it was so good because of that random lady in the front row that day.
That's a film that you need to be 6 beers deep for. That experience, that's totally it.
I never saw Jack and Jill in theaters. Do I get a point for that?
Oh no, I never saw it either.
I may have seen Click, but I didn't see Jack and Jill. Or what's that one where he's a hairdresser? He has some stinkers.
Don't mess with the
Don't mess
Zohan.
with Zohan.
Don't mess with the Zohan. Is that one any good? I'm assuming not.
It's not, no. But as a Jewish person who grew up in a very Jewish area, that was kind of like a bad, fun movie to watch all the time because we got a lot of the jokes. Yeah, like there's just so many relatable things in it. And then like, I don't know, 10 years later seeing it again, 15 years later, whatever it is, and it's just like, oh wow, this is actually like very racist in a lot of ways and not funny. That movie did not age well at all. Yeah. Not great.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt most of his films probably didn't age that great. But he's rich and I'm not, so what do I know? Well, thanks for chatting, y'all. That was super fun.
Yeah. There was one more theater story that I wanted to share, because on the other spectrum, of, I guess, in the negative space of being with a great audience. When I saw Nope in IMAX
Oh
opening
my
weekend,
god.
having it be dead quiet in like the quiet scenes in a packed theater with like over 100 people,
Ugh.
like that was chills inducing just because you know how many people are around you and nobody's saying a
Oh,
word and the movie is silent and it's just, oh man, that was another, like, even if you're watching it by yourself and it's quiet, it was a very different
It felt different.
experience. Yeah.
You can hear the silence in those moments. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah, we got something
Palpable.
similar when we went to see A Quiet Place, and
Oh,
yeah, that is
Yeah.
eerie beyond belief.
very cool. No, the Nope movie. I'm not going to spoil it, but that specific scene in that movie, the really
Mm-hmm.
troubling one. Oh my god, I can't even.
Yep.
I can't even imagine watching that in the theater. I think I'd have to leave the room.
Yeah, that was like
Ugh.
first time I felt legitimate claustrophobia. Like, whoa, like,
I
yeah,
feel sick in my
yeah,
stomach thinking about how that scene made me feel. God, do
yeah.
not recommend.
Great movie.
Great movie. All of Jordan Peele's stuff. Good movies.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no. Neil's asking, did Dune come up? We did talk about Dune. We said it was, as you put it, Steve Aleutian, one of the best, funnest movies that came out recently.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen it, admittedly. Although I will say, like, my partner and I never make time to go to the movies, but he said, I'm making you watch Dune 1 so we can go see Dune 2 this weekend.
Ooh, yeah.
That's how into it. And I'm like, okay, it must be good if he's wanting me to do my homework and watch that before we go. So is it a lot better than Dune 2 Dune 1? It seems like everyone likes Dune 2 more.
I
It
think I
feels
like
like
it
it's a
more.
massive step up.
It's a
Yeah.
And I
massive
would
step up.
say,
Oh, Neil wants to talk.
yeah, and if you get the opportunity, go see it in IMAX, because that sound, it's incredible. It's a
Yeah?
really great experience.
I saw it in regular opening weekend because we couldn't get tickets for IMAX because it was completely sold out.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's like one Regal IMAX theater in Philly, and the other one's an hour away. So the one near here is completely sold out Friday through Monday, and then I tried again this weekend, and it's again sold out Friday through Monday, even the 9 a.m. on Sunday and the 11
That's
p.m.
crazy.
on a Monday night, completely sold out.
Wow. Hi, Neil.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, I figured I might as well hop up and actually talk about it with my voice instead of just chatting in the chat.
What do you
But yeah,
what do you
I
think?
also saw Dune 2. I really liked it. I haven't seen either of them in IMAX. In fact, I haven't watched a single movie in IMAX for like 10 years.
Wow.
And I feel like
Well.
I'm on the other side of the computer graphics conversation where you get people that chime in that are like, I can't see past 30 FPS and 720p, so I don't know what the fuck everyone's talking about. I feel like that's where I'm at for movies. I can definitely tell the difference for sure. I just haven't seen it in so long that I've kind of forgotten what the experience is like, and it saved me a lot of time and money and stress and heartache, I guess.
Yeah, I
But it was
understand
still
that.
extremely good, not an IMAX.
Okay.
I've been thinking about Dune 2 a significant portion of every day since I saw it.
Interesting. And have y'all read the book beforehand? Do you think that's a prerequisite too, or the movies?
I didn't read it.
I
No.
read the book in high school, so it's been a while.
Okay.
So I've had some distance. So I'm
There's
familiar enough with the story to know how it ends, but not enough to pick up on like, oh, they're changing this part.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, that's kind of the same with me. Where I didn't read the book, but I know some extra context from the books and like major plot points that are different from the movie. Like you can look them up afterwards, and I think you'll get that appreciation still.
Mhm.
But like knowing where the story ends up for Dune Messiah, is definitely, I think, lifted my experience for Dune 2 because it's a lot
Yeah,
of build
I would
up,
agree.
right? So
Okay. And
Yeah, I
Dune.
had
think
a
it's
friend tell me that one of the motivations for writing the second book, and by a friend I mean actually a fellow Discord member, Glubtrub, um, it said that one of the motivations for writing the second book was reacting to people's reaction to like the first book, and the author feeling like the people weren't getting it, which I thought was really
Oh.
fascinating, and I also feel like
very
was
cool.
picked up on by this film, because I feel like this film is headed in a similar direction of like, there's just a bunch of questions at the end of
Yeah.
like what's happening and why, and if it's anyhow.
In that it gets
it's funny to me particularly
hand-holdy,
because
or
I read
no?
the book in. Oh, I'm sorry. What?
Oh, sorry. I just meant like in that it gets handholdy. Is that what you mean in terms of its messaging?
No. I mean, like, so I'll just relate this through a personal experience. I read the book in high school, and when I read just the first book in high school, I was like, hell yeah, F yeah, the ending's so cool. Muad'Dib, he's so awesome. My reaction to the film and being an adult now coming back to it, different, and I feel like I understand the story better now than I did when I read it in high school.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's like, that meme is like those who know, those who don't, and it's like the black and white deep fried picture of
The Rock
Mr.
or
Incredible.
something.
Yeah,
Mr. Incredible,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm picturing myself as the guy looking at the thing going, oh, cool space fights, and then the dotted line going over my head that's got like the actual context and text.
Oh no. I hope it
And then
doesn't
the
go over
actual
my
context
head.
and text is like little
Well, no,
mice in the
that was
desert
me
are
in high
cool.
school. Me now, it's fine. I'm sure you'll be
Understated now.
fine.
Okay, good. And is Dune 1 and 2, it's the book of Dune, right? And then there's a sequel?
Yeah, that's just the first book.
Okay,
Mhm.
so is this going to be a trilogy? Are they going to fit the entirety of Dune 2?
God, I hope so.
Yeah? Okay,
Well,
interesting.
there's like over 20 Dune books in total, right?
Oh.
But really only the first 2 or 3 are notable in quotes.
Mhm.
But he said he wanted to make at least, the first 3 to cover the first 2 books.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Yeah, I think he was pretty public about that because he was asked, was there going to be a Dune Part 2? And he's like, well, nobody's greenlit it, but, this is kind of how I've written it.
Yeah, he also said that he was working on the script for Messiah, but he's still so early in the stages, he doesn't have anything to say about it. So I think it's going to be a
Yeah.
while.
I think I'm so in the bag for whatever he's going to be doing with it. He's such an interesting filmmaker, and I don't think he's ever done anything that's been less than just incredible.
Yeah, and I think really something I found out recently, Greg Fraser, who is the cinematographer for both Dune movies, has an incredible portfolio of films that he's done now. Like I think he goes all the way back to like Zero Dark 30 and the Batman, the Matt Reeves Batman, and like so much of those movies I feel like are of the Dune movies are really credited to the cinematography in it because it's just so good.
A distinct style.
I think that's what I was going to say. Just like as a last comment kind of thing on what you would get if you'd read the books.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing is like there will be scenes in like each of the films where you'll just sit there looking at the screen going, I can't believe that they've made like this thing that was in your head, they've put it on a screen. It's those kind of moments are quite cool.
See, I love those kind of moments because I have that thing, I forget what the word is called, but when I read and when I think, I don't actually see things. Have you guys heard of this? It's like 1 in every 5 people or something. I don't have visualizations in my mind, I guess, and I've talked to my therapist about this. I'm like, is this actually a thing? But yeah, apparently it's a lot more common than I thought. But so if I say the word apple, y'all can picture an apple in your head a little bit. Like you can see the visualization of an apple. I don't see anything. I just kind of think of an apple, and that's a little bit weird. But I really am jealous of. It doesn't affect me at all. I don't think I think differently or anything. I think it's just I just don't see things when I think, and the same stuff still happens as other people. But I really miss it when I'm reading because I read the words and I understand. But I was talking to my sister about this like a few months ago, and I was like, so when you were reading like the Harry Potter books and they described the castle, you like saw a castle in your eyes and stuff? And she was like, yeah, like I pictured the castle. I was like, oh, like that sounds way more fun to read that way, even though I still am thinking of a castle and I'm like, he goes up to the castle. I just don't have I guess my brain can't, I'd have to sit down and draw something before I could be like, oh, this is what I think I would see.
I think you're the first person I've met with this. I always heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I have to ask, do you have visual dreams when you sleep?
I think so. That's the thing is like I'll come to and even last night I dreamt that the Bob's Burgers family and I went to I think Bob from Bob's Burgers was driving a Mario Kart thing and we were going into this Mario Kart stadium where it looked like Yoshi's Circuit, the one that's just a circle outside. But then everyone was going around, and like Luigi kept falling off and then bouncing back on, and that there was something nefarious was going on. And I remember all that happening, and that was going on. But I don't know. It's weird. I don't think I can really describe it other than like that all happened, but I can't tell you like visually what I saw.
Like you can't say the color of the cart that he was driving, or
I know
like
Luigi
the general
was
color.
driving a green cart, but I don't know necessarily that exact image floated in front of my eye brain. That
is fascinating.
This is amazing to me.
That's a really
This
fascinating.
is like your brain cooked that up, but like the Harry Potter castle, it just said no.
And it's not even like I'm missing something when I think of the Harry Potter castle. I just don't see a visualization of it. And I really didn't know that was something people saw until I started looking. I saw someone on like a YouTube video was talking about it or whatever. It was like, oh yeah, I don't see any visualizations. And everyone in the room was like, what? And then I like Googled the word. I was like, oh, I thought this is just how we all thought, but y'all can like see things like this. And I just think it's interesting that I can't really describe it other than that I don't see things, but I still understand the concept. It's almost like Plato's concept of a Luigi cart. It's like I know it's like every Luigi cart ever made.
Luigi puppet cart.
The form, not Aristotle's matter, but the form. Like that's the only way I can maybe kind of explain it. It's like every Luigi cart ever made is the cart I saw, but it wasn't actually the matter that it was. Sorry, Neil?
I was going to ask, can you force yourself to see a picture?
I've tried. Well, even like the apple thing. It's like I'm trying to think of a visual apple. I don't see an apple. I just think apple.
Okay. Well, because I was relating a lot to what you were saying about not automatically seeing things.
Okay.
I feel like when things are described, I don't draw a picture in my head until I am like actively thinking, oh, what does it look like?
Yeah.
So like when you said apple, I'm like, okay, apple. And then it's like, what does it look like? And I'm like, I guess it's red and it has like a shiny green spot and it's on a table. And I have to think about drawing the rest of it.
Drawing.
Like the visual doesn't.
That's interesting.
Doesn't
way to
come
phrase
into
it.
The visual doesn't come in fully formed. I have to fill in the details. So like a castle thing, I'd have to think about it. Like I was like, okay, it's a castle. It's big. It's got stone. But then it's like, okay, but what does it look like? You have to think about it. I have to like fill all the rest of the stuff in.
And
so I don't think the picture for me is automatic.
I think I don't see the picture and drawn in the same way as you, but I could if I sat down and started drawing an apple. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I know what an apple looks like, and I can have that information stored in my brain. It just when my brain remembers apple, it just doesn't give me a visual too.
For me, it's like a time lapse of someone else drawing an apple on like
someone else.
Thing.
That's so interesting.
It happens really fast, and the details just get filled in as I'm thinking about them. But
do you all hear
because I don't actually
your voice
have to do anything
when you think?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You hear your own like your voice.
Yeah. Sometimes I give myself other people's voices though.
What? See,
sometimes they just talk to me. And I don't make the voices.
I think I hear mine differently.
Yeah.
Like I've listened to myself put it this like there is no way that I'm going to listen to this back later because I can't listen to myself. Because whenever I hear a recording, it's so different to what I hear in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I hear
like
my
that's
voice.
Pretty universal though.
I think I just hear. I think I don't hear. This is so interesting to me. I think if I was thinking like, oh, I have so much work to do later, I don't think I have so much work to do later. I think I just know that in my brain.
Like the concept.
And I feel the emotions that go, like the stress of that concept. But I don't think, oh, I have so much work to do later, as if it's like a
say, does it make your bones hurt? Because it makes my
This is very cool.
This is cool. It's weird how we kind of take things for granted. Like we all think the same, but it's different people think different for sure.
Yeah.
So you are basically like the opposite of Will Graham from the Hannibal TV show.
What's that? I don't know that.
He's got this thing where he can construct like images and stuff in his head in like vivid detail, and it's like, and you're like the polar opposite of that, where it's like I can't see things, I can't hear things.
It's like an anti-superhero ability. Yeah, see, I can't see things when I think. I'm gonna Google that. There was a name for it. Yeah, can't see things in their mind. Aphantasia.
Oh, okay, yeah.
is a characteristic some people have related to how their mind and imagination work. Having it means you don't have visual imagination, keeping you from picturing things in your mind. Often people don't realize they have it, and it's not a disability or medical condition. So I didn't think about this until like a year ago. And someone pointed out to me, like, well, no, like, I just saw that in my head. I was like, what are you talking about? And maybe I got a little bit messed up when we talked about it. I was like, you see things? Yeah, many people with this have said they assured others were speaking metaphorically when they described seeing something in their mind's eye, which I also thought, like, oh, I can picture it now. Like, when people say that, I was like, that's a weird, wow. I get it. Like, that's a funny phrase. Like, I don't know. Like, I just never realized it was a real thing y'all could do.
That's okay. So follow-up question to that then. Do you daydream less? Like when you were, as someone with ADHD, and I'm constantly picturing things in my head and getting distracted.
Mm-hmm.
I just get lost in my own thoughts, just visualizing things.
Yeah.
To a detriment, right?
Yeah.
So for someone who can't do that, did you find yourself like in school or something, looking out the window, daydreaming? Like, did you ever do that, or did you just think in your own way that you were saying without visualizing, like in concepts rather than actual words?
I can daydream. I just don't see anything. Like if I was thinking about, oh, imagine if I could fly. I think about that and I have emotions associated, but I don't see myself flying. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's so interesting to think about it. Like you really do take for granted how your brain works, because I'll just operate on Haley mode, and I'll live my life. And then when people ask me questions like that, I'm like, yeah, I guess I don't ever see anything. I just think those things, and they make me feel things when I think. Like, I'll still think of the scenarios. Like, I'll think, if I could fly, and probably some kind of story unfolds in my mind, but no visuals are attached to it.
That is so incredible. That is so fascinating.
But it's also like,
do you think that hurt you or helped you in law school?
That's the thing. Like, also, I have OCD, and I wonder if that contributed to it a bit, maybe? Like, my hyperfixation on thoughts. I'd be interested to read about how people with this and also OCD, because I didn't get diagnosed with that until this last year, but I've struggled with it my whole life, and I wonder if I had the ability to see things in my mind's eye, so to speak, if I would have figured out that was what I was struggling with specifically sooner. That's a psych paper right there. I don't know. Like,
that is a psych paper.
If anyone here is a psych student, like, write that and tell me, because I'd be curious to know.
That's a dissertation.
That's a freaking dissertation right there. But yeah. So I hyperfixate on things, not particular things like I know some people struggle with like everything has to be organized or whatever. I mean, I slightly struggle with that, but mine is I catastrophize things. And I have to go back and check everything's okay over and over and over again until I go like quite literally crazy. And maybe it's because I can't picture in my mind's eye the thing and it's okay. Like for me, particularly when I became a lawyer, it got really bad because I started thinking, oh, I bet that license, I didn't check that license right enough. And there were some times with agreements, I was going back and checking them 50 to 100 times, waking up at 4 a.m. and getting off and going on my computer and rereading agreements in the middle of the night because I was so obsessed with making sure everything was perfect because I was catastrophizing, I'd ruin this person's life if this agreement wasn't right, blah, blah, blah. I'm a lot better now. But I wonder if, because I wasn't able to picture the agreement and think of it in a more concrete way, that not that I could bring
permanence kind of thing.
Yeah, like not that I could think of the words and have like an eidetic memory or something, but just that I could think about it more concretely. Maybe if those feelings wouldn't be as dramatic. Yeah, someone write that. Someone write a paper, please, and tag me in it, at me in it on Twitter.
Yeah, I feel like there might be something out there already, really correlating.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, but yeah, I'd be fascinated to read that. If anybody in the Discord finds that, share it and add us, please. Because
anyone in the Discord also thinks like me and has this weird thing. I wonder what the rate is people that have it. I thought it was relatively high. Rate of people that have I can't even say the word. Rate.
Aphantasia.
Aphantasia. It sounds like 3 to 4%. Oh, I thought it was way higher than that.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Interesting. I thought it was way higher than that. Anyways. Whoops. I'm weird. I have a weird brain problem, I guess.
So I
That was such
googled
an
the
excellent
word
detour.
aphantasia, and the Wikipedia article that came up has a diagram of like people's heads with an apple inside them.
Yeah.
So for me, if I think about it, the apple slowly goes from 5 to 1.
What do you mean it goes from
That's
5 to 1?
interesting.
I mean, it doesn't start at any of those numbers.
Oh, in
well,
the
I mean,
diagram.
it doesn't start and stay on one of them. It starts at like 5 or maybe 4. And if I think about the apple, the more I think about it, the further to the left it goes. It goes more up to 1.
Interesting. So you just need time in order to form that visualization.
Or a reason. If someone says, think about the apple, think about the details of the apple. Like I start adding the details. Like it goes from an outline to like being colored, having more than one tone, stuff like that.
Yeah. So
I guess for the audio listeners, we're looking at a diagram of 5 silhouette faces with different detailed pictures of apples inside them.
So y'all see
Okay,
1
sorry.
all the time?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
You know,
I have to
cool.
think
To just
about it for a
see
minute
a,
for it to get to 1.
Gotcha.
Well, not a minute, but like I have to have a reason.
Yeah, someone has to call
Yeah.
attention to you for it to come to fruition. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Otherwise,
John
the assets
Green.
are still loading in on the back end.
Yeah, I think John Green also has that. He tweeted here with that Apple picture. He's like he's a 5 and he had no idea 1 through 4 existed.
Yeah. That's what
Yeah.
happened to me. Because no one talks about that. When you're a little kid, no one says, "What's in your mind? What are you thinking in your mind right now? What visually do you see?" They don't get as specific. They say, "What are you thinking about right now?" They don't say, "What do you see in there?" But I
Can
don't
you change the color of the apple in your mind?
not me. I don't see nothing.
That's a question for the people with like the apple in
Oh.
Yeah, Leafeon and solution.
Yeah, I mean, I can visualize pretty much anything, I guess. But yeah, like I don't know how to describe it. Literally, like I see things without visually seeing them. I just can see it in my head. Like I can see a full castle with ivory and ivy. I meant,
Oh, beautiful.
and like
man,
all
you just
this
changed
stuff
the
on it.
picture of the castle.
Right? Yeah.
Something like castle with the
Ivory tower with ivy all over it, and
I
poison
think for me,
ivy at
it's
the
like
top.
memory recall. Like if you say apple, I'll try and think of a recent example, or castle, I'll think of like a castle that I've seen recently,
Oh,
and
so
it
you
tends to go for there.
stored. So you have
So you're from
stored
somewhere
photo.
there are castles you can see recently.
Yeah.
So you use stored. I guess that's not, I'm acting like that's such a crazy thing. You just use stored memory to come up with visualizations. That's quite literally using your imagination. It's just weird how that's just different how I do it, I guess.
Yeah, there was an old children's book series. I can't remember what it's called. But it was it Nancy Drew? No, it wasn't Nancy Drew. Definitely wasn't Nancy Drew. But there was another like mystery book with a girl, and the whole thing was that she had photographic memory.
Yeah.
And then, like it's as kids, we all thought it's like, oh, photographic memory. She just like takes a picture of it and sees it in her mind.
Yeah.
And then I realized like, oh, Cam Jansen. Thank you. Yes, Cam Jansen in the Twitch chat. Jeremy84 says. So, yeah, it was such a wild concept, when you're a kid, because they make it up like it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh no, I guess that is just kind of how I do think about things, and I never thought of it as like a photographic memory. I can refer back to things I've seen in the past, like visually, and then mix it up if I need to. Yeah.
Interesting. All this is to say, I feel like I am on the losing side of this picture, this apple picture. That Neil
No, I
has
don't think it's a
brought up.
losing side at all.
I mean, I don't
Again, as
think it
someone
affects.
who, like-
Yeah, I don't think it affects how I learn or take in information. It's just like a different vibe. I think. Yeah,
Yeah, so
Crowboy.
Crowboy, yeah.
Yes.
I wonder if it's an
No.
advantage for something like law, where so much
Yeah,
of
I was
what's
wondering
going
the same
on
thing.
is the text and not like any kind of visual or spatial thing.
It might help with like legislative reading for sure, but when I'm reading cases, it'll describe the facts scenario and it'll describe real world events and stuff like that. But again, it's not like I'm like, what's what's an apple, huh? Like, I know what you know what I mean? It's just like,
Well, I'm saying the rest of us, when we read and we picture things, that's like a I don't know, like a drug or
more effort.
like a thing that makes it easier to keep going. Whereas reading like legal text, like the eyes glaze over. I stop taking the words in as well. There's nothing to picture, so my brain gets bored.
Interesting.
Yeah,
1000%. Yeah.
I struggle with that big time.
And I'm sure a lot of that is just lack of practice. That like anything, the more you do it, the easier it gets. But I do wonder if some of it is also the other thing with, it's like, I don't know. I'm not sure what it's like.
Maybe my brain's putting less effort into giving me visualizations that I can go through those really boring patches of words to do with the frickin' Income Tax Act or something. And I'm just like, these are words. I don't know. Maybe. That'd be interesting.
That's a real glass half full way to look at it. You can't picture fruit, but it's a superpower for your job.
I don't know what an apple is, but I can read the Income Tax Act. Just a weird human in the corner of a room reading law books and never talking to anybody else.
Never knew what an apple is.
Interesting. Well, hey, if you're listening and you this has made you realize, oh, weird, maybe I also have that thing Haley has, low-key, write to me on Discord. I'm curious to talk to other people. I've never met someone else in real life who, like, I've seen videos of people saying they have it too, but I've never got to talk to somebody about it. I'd like to talk to somebody about it who sounds like, Neil, you're pretty close though. Like, it seems like maybe you have a little touch of aphantasia.
Yes, I'm somewhere on that chart, I guess.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I was also thinking for me that it might have been an advantage for spatial logic. Like, I'm good at arranging things in spaces. At least that's what they told me when I was younger, for like school stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's because my brain has to, like, it doesn't just picture things, it has to draw in the details specifically.
Yeah.
And if that was an advantage in that regard, but that's just sort of speculation on my part.
Yeah, now I kind of want to read more into this if people have done studies with children with it and how they learn differently or something like that. More to look into. But
I'd be fascinated to see like vocational studies of like if there's any like anomalies with like what these people tend to be what they tend to do in life.
Naturally good at. Yeah. Interesting. Well, thanks for that really random tangent, y'all. That was so fun. We ended up talking for an additional like 50 minutes or something about brain stuff. Very fun. Yeah, and anyone listening, if you want to chat with me about this more, come in our MinMax Discord, patreon.com/MinMax, and we'll talk about it. I'm sure people on the MinMax shows channel will be talking about this now, wondering if they have it too. But yeah, thanks so much for chatting with me, all. It was fun to do a community-based one. After the first most of all the other episodes we've done with Bonus Pod being with a cohort coming on. Next week I'm going to be at GDC, so no Bonus Pod unfortunately. But the week after that, my close personal friend Brian is going to come on, and I'm going to talk to him about competing in Pokemon, like doing actual Pokemon competitive stuff, because he competes with Pokemon at, I think, at a national level. I don't want to say it's national and it's actually not, but he's very good at it, and I've never beat him. Fred, close personal friend Ash Ketchum, and I've actually started watching the new anime, and I want to talk about that following week as well. And if anyone else has that on their radar too, I'd love to talk with people on that too. But yeah, thank you so much again for joining. This was Bonus Pod, the companion podcast of the MinMax Show. My name is Haley McLean, and again, next week, Ben, Janet, and I, and Leo actually too, are at GDC. So no Bonus Pod, but I will be coming back the week after that, and we'll do another episode right away. So thank you so much for joining, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye everybody on Twitch. I'm just gonna end the stream now. I gotta go get ready. Oh, some people were asking before I leave on Twitch if Leo and I are doing a live stream tonight. Yes, we are. That's what I have to go get ready for, because we should be doing that in the next it's supposedly 15 minutes, but I have to go check on my friend's kitties first at her house, and then I'll come right back and we'll do the live stream. So yeah, that'll be on tonight. Hopefully I can stream it. I might just be recording it locally from my side, but if I'm not streaming it, also they might be doing the deepest dive tonight? I can't remember. Neil, do you happen to know?
Next week.
Next week, okay. But I'll record it locally regardless. But Leo will be streaming it live on his channel, Leo Vader, on YouTube. So you can watch it there too. Okay, bye everybody on Twitch.